Howdy y'all, it's Cody from the Keeper's Nerddom. How you doing today? I thought today we would talk about our Is It Accurate series, and we're finishing up the US models, and this time around we are finishing up the infantry side, and specifically finishing up with aircraft after some of the infantry as well. And so this is where things get really interesting. You get to see the things I've talked about of aircraft not functioning very well in the game. Just talk through a little bit about how those function and then some of the pieces that we have here. So we're going to start first off with the soldiers, which are actually artillery pieces. So the first one we've got here is the M1 81 millimeter mortar. Here he is right here in all of his glory. And I love the pose that he is, plugging his ears, because this is going to be really loud, really simple. Nothing on the base, just a black base. Pretty simple. It is 12 points to field this from 1942. It's a 3-3 defense, so easily killed. But it's meant to take down other things pretty efficiently. So it's got a 3-8-8, so it gets better at longer ranges because it's a mortar, because it goes up and then back down. It's a 6-5 against vehicles, so not very good against vehicles, but maybe a smaller support vehicle you could take out. So improved indirect fire. If a friendly U.S. unit is within 4 hexes of an enemy soldier and has line of sight to it, this unit's attacks against that soldier ignore line of sight. This makes absolute sense because it's radioing in a mortar strike. And this makes for a really fun unit. Even if it was just 8 squares, it would still, or hexes, this would be really good. But it actually is 16. The long range of this is 5 to 16 hexes, which I think seems a little too big. 14 to 12 would have been fine. Inaccurate, this unit gets -1 on each attack die. It's a mortar, it's inaccurate, makes sense. So you're only hitting on 5s and 6s, and instead of 4 5s and 6s on a d6, makes perfect sense. Shrapnel, each success this unit rolls against a soldier counts as 2 successes. So even though you're inaccurate, when you hit something, especially soldier stuff, so anything with the soldier classification up here, it counts as 2 hits every time it connects. So every 5 and 6 counts as 2 hits. Makes it really easy to knock something down and kill it pretty quickly. So this unit has speed 2 during your assault phase. So in essence, it can't move during movement phase. You either move or you shoot with it. With 16 hexes out, though, unless you really need to move just to hide from something coming up to shoot you, you're going to be firing, and that's a big deal. Like, this is awesome. Would I use this? Absolutely. Is it accurate? I think so overall, other than maybe the range being a little too long, because that's massive. This is just a portable mortar, so this is acting though like it's a mounted gun on a vehicle, or pulled by a vehicle. So I think that might be a little too big. So otherwise accurate, yes. That is the one part I'd say is missing a little bit. So our next thing is the 3-inch gun M5, and the model on here is kind of the lamest model in ways that I have, other than the base has a pretty wonderful little coating of pebbles and stuff, which I like. This makes sense actually to use for like a Warhammer 40K base, just to give you some, I don't know, you can just almost take this model off and scratch it up a little bit and reuse this for something else. Kind of cool. So this is a very simple model as far as how it functions. It's 12 points. It's a soldier/artillery, so it counts as soldier for targeting purposes. That's why they do that. The defense again is 3-3, so it's pretty easily destroyed. Only 3s on infantry, but it's 14, 12, 10 against vehicles. This is an anti-vehicle machine. Like, this is just death dealing. It's crazy. So relocate 2. This unit has speed 2 during your assault phase. Nothing too crazy here. Is it accurate? I mean, I would say yes, because it's a 3-inch gun. We're talking about a massive gun, very heavy, very powerful. It's going to punch through things other than at long range, a tiger. That's the reality, but it's going to take care of business. The funny thing is it has way less range than that mortar. It has half the range. So meh, kind of not meh to this, but just how crazy that is. So now we get into the aircraft, and the aircraft rules are as follows: that every turn in the, I believe, movement phase, you just pop them down on the field, and at the end of everybody attacking and stuff, you remove them again, and then you can place them back down as long as they don't have a disruption token. So then they can't be targeted while they're disrupted, but they also can't shoot. But it's like they would have a -1 to defense, which would actually be extremely important. Anyway, So this is the Lockheed P-38 Lightning. This is like one of my favorite aircraft from World War II. Just I love the twin props and the just pylons going back to the rear. I just love that design. So it's so bizarrely different than most things. And then the fact that the cockpit normally goes straight back with, connection that these are, it's just not here. And this reminds me actually of Star Trek stuff with the Akira class and then the NX Enterprise. Beautiful concept and design there, right? And they took it from things like this. So really cool looking aircraft. But gameplay wise, it is 17 points. It is counted as an aircraft, so it's a completely different function. It has a 4-4 defense, 9-6 against infantry. So decent, right? And you can plop this thing literally right beside, like in the adjacent hex of something else, and shoot it. So you could get that 9 every turn if you want. So 3-2 against vehicles, so it's not really a vehicle killer. Aircraft are placed during the flight phase and attacked during the airstrike phase. So I apologize, there's a phase after the movement phase, and they have their own little separate phases, but they do the same things as everybody else. Units attacking aircraft use their anti-soldier attacks and get -1 on each attack die. So it's an interesting thing that they would use these stats for anti-infantry, but they don't actually count as infantry here like soldiers, so they don't get bonuses towards them like shrapnel or whatnot, unless they have something else that says anti-air, right? So this, in this case, actually is an anti-aircraft. So if your opponent places an aircraft before you, you place this right beside it. This unit ignores the -1 penalty on each attack die when attacking aircraft. If an enemy aircraft is placed in a hex adjacent to this unit may make a defensive fire attack against it. So it is an anti-aircraft, but then you could also use it against infantry as well. And lastly, strafe. After this unit attacks a soldier in your airstrike phase, it can make 1 extra attack against another soldier in a hex adjacent to the original target because it's strafing the stuff. And honestly, I love the concept here. This is really cool. 1942. Really cool concept. Is it accurate? Mostly yes, but everything with aircraft just doesn't work with the whole speed and how they function, that they just show up on the board. It's just not feasible, really. They should have had a movement of like 6, 7 or something like that to just make them buzz around the field, so that way they start at a certain location and they have to get closer to units and can't just shoot the rear of an open-topped vehicle immediately by popping in right behind it. That just irks me. Next time we play and we ever include aircraft, we might do that actually. So the unfortunate thing is aircraft have different speeds, and that's the reality too. And then when they just pop in, you're not referencing really any of their speed anyway. And so you'd have to create an entirely new speed chart for these. Like, is a Lightning faster than our next vehicle, right? Is the Mustang faster? I would probably guess the Mustang is faster if I had a small guess. I like this model as far as the look. And what's really cool about these bases is they actually have a just ball joint in there, so you can actually move them around to give them a fun little facing, like, oh, I'm flying away, oh, I'm dive bombing to hit you. Really cool, really neat. But just the paint job here, other than the stars and stuff, just kind of lame because there's just not much going on here. It's very much just a dull light gray, almost a white with a nasty green. And I guess to some extent that's accurate, but it just doesn't look well. It doesn't look right. So this is the P-51 Mustang, and this is an aircraft. So we've already talked about that. It's a 9-7 as well against infantry. So exact same stats, other than in medium range it gets a +1 to attack infantry. Anti-air as well, so it's an anti-aircraft as well. And then rockets, 8. And so I'm guessing that those are supposed to be something of, no, those should be machine guns, I would guess, but I don't know. I don't know where the rockets are technically stored on this. Once per game, instead of rolling this unit's attack against an enemy soldier or vehicle within 4 hexes, you can declare you're using rockets. If you do, roll 8 attack dice against that unit. So, yeah, okay. So against soldiers, that'd actually be +1 over here in medium. Short, you wouldn't want to do that, but against vehicles, you could actually have a rocket strike that could do some damage and knock out something that's pretty massive, right? Pretty cool concept. I love all this. This is good. It all works. It's just, again, the aircraft movement. So our last one is the Corsair. I'm just going to leave it at that because ironically, the letters and numbers here just don't sound great out loud, And again, 9-7 against infantry. 3-2, so it's the exact same stats as the Mustang. Aircraft, anti-air, again, an anti-aircraft. I stopped collecting because the funny thing about this game was without like damaging anything, you could shake the box just slightly and you could hear these in there because this stuff came separate. And so what you could do is if you shook the box, you could hear them tapping against each other and tanks wouldn't make that sound. And so they're not made with the same plastic because of the paint over it. You know, the sound would be very different. You'd be like, oh, there's an aircraft. And so for a while we collected aircraft and then realized they're not fun. And so let's go through here a little bit further. 4-4 defense as well, 20 points. So this is 3 more points than the other two. And why is that? Would you take this? Superior armor 2, an attack must beat this unit's defense by 2 or more in order to score 2 hits against it. And I believe these only have 2 hit points. No, they should have 3. They should have 3, I do believe. Bombs once per game. Instead of rolling this unit's attack against an enemy soldier or vehicle in the same hex, you can declare you are using bombs. If you do, roll 12. So I guess you could jump into the same hex too. I forgot about that. If you do, roll 12 attack dice against that unit if it's a soldier, or 8 attack dice if it's a vehicle. Yeah, really, really strong. Really strong, because you can knock out a soldier, like something is causing some problems for your tank, so you want to kill, an artillery piece, get rid of it, get rid of their ammo dump, things like that. These are overall, really interesting gameplay pieces. I don't know where my... You know what? Hang on. We're going to pause for just a second, and we're going to see if we can find the rules to this and look at aircraft for a second. Because aircraft change everything, and I don't remember where they are in the rules, because aircraft were weird. I think they didn't come out immediately in the game. And so, airstrike phases. Okay, 11. So we'll look at that together here. So the rules are pretty complicated sometimes, and then it's played in turns. Players follow the sequence of play consisting of specific phases. So basically, you're supposed to roll initiative, your movement phases, your flight phase, so you land aircraft, airstrikes, assaults, casualties. So let's look at airstrikes right here. During your airstrike phase, you can place your aircraft anywhere on the board. Aircraft with face-up disrupted carriers can't be placed. You'll have to wait until the disruption wears off first. This is weird because it doesn't explain, hey, how many hit points does an aircraft have? And I haven't played aircraft in so long because we just never liked them because they just seem silly. Because if you didn't have anti-aircraft units like Russia doesn't have in the first 5 sets, anti-aircraft units as far as I remember, and that was really frustrating, right? And yeah, let's do attack effects and see if aircraft have anything here. I know this is a little bit of a side note here, but I think it's an important note. So at the start of the casualty phase, okay. A vehicle that receives 2 simultaneous hits. Soldiers and aircraft, there it is. Okay, right there. Don't receive damage counters. 2 simultaneous hits result in a destroyed counter instead. So it only takes 2 hits to kill aircraft. So that's nice. And that is more accurate because an aircraft has to be more flimsy just to be, up in the sky. It can't have a whole lot of armor on it unless you're Russia, which they did that, but then their airplanes are really slow. So they could take hits-ish, but just enough hits so it would still down them. So they were so slow it was easy to get rid of them. Soldier aircraft that receives 2 or more simultaneous hits gets a destroyed counter. Vehicle that receives 3 or more simultaneous hits, so in the same turn, gets a destroyed counter. If a damaged vehicle will receive another damage counter, gets a destroyed counter instead. When hit counters are flipped over during the casualty phase, remove all units with destroyed counters from the battle map. And that's one thing I want to always figure out and look at, but let's look at one last thing really quickly here. If an aircraft is placed in a hex adjacent to a unit with the anti-air ability, then the aircraft provokes a defensive fire attack from that unit. Other than the condition that provokes it, this attack is a normal defensive fire attack. Just kind of an interesting thing to note there. Aircraft have some rules that govern them that do help-ish, but overall I think they've got some serious issues because they just can fly around and pop out of nowhere, and that's really frustrating. But let me know down in the comments below which one of these 5 units was your favorite thing to see today, and which one really excites you, and which one you'd love to see played and or used in a game sometime. And maybe when we get a chance to play a game, we'll get a few turns and record it. So I've been Cody from the Keepers of Nerddom. Take care, and like and subscribe. Bye.